Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the Expat Files. My name is Tain, and today I have a really cool guest, a very special person. This is somebody I met recently on a trip to Panama, and I had a chance to meet with Dr. Jorge Paz-Rodriguez, who is one of the founders of the Stem Cell Institute in Panama City. And this is something that North Americans need to know about. Now, a lot of the clientele that Dr. Paz sees is from North America, but most people don't know about this. They don't know what stem cells treat. They don't know about the efficacy. And then the safety record too, I thought was really shocking because it's so outstanding. And so there's a lot for people, I think, to know about stem cell treatment. And we have on just an absolute excellent guest, a real expert in this field who's going to tell us a little bit about how he got started in it and why this matters. So welcome, Dr. Paz. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you very much, Christian. It's a pleasure being with you and your guest. You know, it's a fascinating field that I'm involved in. I'll give you the story. So I'm, as you mentioned, Dr. Jorge Paz-Rodriguez. My training is in internal medicine. I studied here in Panama, but I did my training in New York, where I studied internal medicine. And I practiced for 11 and a half years in San Antonio, Texas, doing traditional primary care medicine. And while being there, I really got that aha moment of you know, how wrongly we were trained in medicine overall, in the sense of being reactive all the time. You know, that's really the way we were geared to practice, meaning, you know, you have high blood pressure, take a pill, you have high cholesterol, take a pill. And it was all being reactive. It didn't make any sense, obviously, at all. And everybody that I saw, it was the same complaints. I'm tired, I have no energy, I don't feel well, I don't sleep well, etc. And we did the routine blood work and everything was fine. So we were blaming it on age, etc. So I knew, you know, it was wrong. And that's really when I started going or looking into preventative care, wellness. You know, some people call it anti-aging. You know, nothing is going to stop the aging process, but we're understanding what happens in general with the aging process and things that you can impact into improving the quality of life of patients, and at the same time being in a preventative way. So that's really where I started. Then I moved back to Panama in 2005, and I implemented that, and I still run a wellness clinic, which basically the idea is to identify, again, by doing more extensive blood work to understand what happens at the chemical, vitamin, hormonal level, and then you can address these things and, more importantly, do something about it. So that was really has been a fascinating turn in my practice, because you truly can impact the quality of life of people. And that's truly what we're looking at now, is really how can we help, you know, our overall health. You know, we all want to live longer, but obviously with quality. So that got me into, you know, and this came by chance when a doctor friend of mine who had a heart condition and sought our partner, Neil Riordan, which is a scientist who started this field or started working with stem cells. At that time, he was in Costa Rica.
What year was this?
This was 2006, where out of the blues, he calls me up and he said, "Hey, I'm in Costa Rica getting a stem cell treatment." And I'm like, "Wow, David, what are you doing?" You know, my knowledge at that time was really minimal, as most doctors, imagine layman people, understood what was happening at that time. Anyway, he had great results, and he told me that Riordan always wanted to come to Panama. So we had this meeting with myself, my other partner from the lab here, Rodolfo Fernandez, and it was pretty amazing when I met Neil, the knowledge, the scientific knowledge that he had in this field, even at that time. And we finished the meeting, and something in me told me this is something worth pursuing.
And that was for a heart. That was for a heart condition, you said.
Yeah, he had a heart failure due to a congenital problem, and they found a study in China which they've been doing a lot of studies there initially, and they found some rationale. Well, the cells, because of what they do, and we'll talk more about the mechanism of action, but he got better, and with heart failure, it's pretty objective. You have, heart pumping very low, and then you get an echocardiogram a month later, and his pumping ability of the heart improves dramatically. So that's really what impressed me.
Yeah, that's really incredible.
Pretty remarkable, because basically you have nothing to do with these type of patients. Medications, and at the end, some of them require, lung heart transplant, and that's it. So
I know you're going to get into this, but how do you do stem cells in the heart? Are the stem cells actually put into the heart? Do they have to actually do that, or do they take by just putting it in the blood? I know you're going to get into some of the technical stuff in a minute, but I'm fascinated because that one I hadn't heard.
Yeah, so there are some studies where they applied cells directly into the heart, but our protocol was just putting them in IV via the vein. And I'll go through the mechanism, but basically damaged tissue signals the cells to want to go there, and the cells work not because of what they become, because that's really the misnomer, because at the end they're truly not stem in the sense that they're not becoming other cells in your body. They're truly medicinal in the way they work. They secrete.
It's a reparation, right? It's a repair mechanism that you're.
It's a repair. At the end, they're truly medicinal because they secrete all these molecules that home to damaged tissue, and that's been proven in animal studies. What they put radioactive material in the cells, and they saw in a rat model how they all concentrated. They induce a heart attack in a rat model, and the cells concentrated primarily in the heart, secreting all these molecules. So basically, for that specific protocol, like most, it's just IV. The cells secrete these molecules that go where they're needed. That's pretty, in a very simplistic way, what they do. So. Yes. So he got better. We met, we talked. I was blown away. We came back to Panama, and we're like, okay, well, let's find the legal framework, which is really important. And we found a law that was in favor of it. And that's how we started. People ask me, well, why in Panama? Well, we're here. We knew people in high places that allowed us to be heard. And that's really at the end, many times what you need. And we presented the project, and we based on a lot of scientific rationale. We had to get approval. Our lab is in a technopark in Panama, so we required that. And that's how we went. We got the license of the clinic, the license of the lab. And again, when you're a pioneer, especially in the medical field, you're going to encounter a lot of naysayers, especially in the medical community, because, us doctors, we're the worst. There's something we don't understand, we blow it away. And right. And we're trained to be like horses with blinders, and that's the unfortunate thing. So we started with that, and we grew from 4 people in the lab, and now we have more than 100. And we publish, which is really important, because at the end you can have an innovative therapy, but you have to have data. You have to have safety data, and we did small clinical studies, because that's, for me as a doctor, was really important. Number one, safety, and we know we have a safe product. And obviously it works, it has clinical rationale in the conditions, and we'll go through that in a minute, where there's evidence by us and other places that are working in this field.
That's amazing. Well, I want to say, first of all, you're a very, very rare bird to have done that. I mean, I don't know. I worked in medicine. I actually worked in several different hospitals. I was trying to bring a sort of franchise model of acupuncture to the US medical system, a very simple, but a very high quality hospital-based kind of acupuncture. A lot of hospitals have acupuncturists, but right, this, the delivery of quality of treatment is all over the place, and nothing's really standardized. And it's all very much dismissed as, yeah, sure, go to the acupuncturist, but a lot of doctors don't have any real understanding of it. So I know some of the obstacles that you have to overcome to do something that is a little different or innovative or outside of sort of medical school training. I've experienced some of that myself, and some of it was very rewarding to help people pass, and some of it was, I don't know how you did it. I mean, you say you found a favorable environment in Panama, and so first of all, bravo, right? That some doctor somewhere kind of gets, because I think this is the big thing from a patient's point of view is, hey, my doctor just doesn't get what I'm going through. You know, there has to be a better approach to this. But doctors are trained according, you know, they know what they know from medical school, and they're all basically trained the same. So there's a philosophy about how you treat illness. And clearly, in a lot of cases, it's just not working. And patients feel this. And if you talk to enough doctors, doctors feel it too. Doctors kind of get that, like, yeah, it's too bad we don't have better ways to treat whatever. Autoimmunity would be one example. You know, all of the things where you see patients really, really struggling in the conventional medical system. But you really did something really tremendous. I mean, you took such a left turn away from the rest of your colleagues, but you did it. Like, you really made it. I mean, the Stem Cell Institute is world famous. I mean, you guys are kind of it in this part of the world. So do you have anything else to say about regulatory obstacles? I know you talked about the importance of proof. Was it really that easy for you in Panama, or how long did it take you to get the clinic open, and what did you have to overcome in order to do that? Or was it just Panama basically was open to it and you gave them enough of an explanation and they just said, go for it?
Yeah, we, you know, obviously easy is a, you know, relatively world, you know, we pretty much from where when we had that meeting in 2006, we started operating in 2008. So it took a couple of years to get everything squared away.
That's
And I
fast.
think, yeah, that was really fast. Again, at
Medicine,
that
that's
time,
fast. Yep.
I think a lot of them had no clue what we were doing. So, you know, basically we opened something totally new, and that was really the you know what happened here. But obviously we, conjunction with our scientific group and collaborating with the equivalent of the FDA there, we said, well, we want to do studies, etc. So again, knowing people in high places that allowed us to be heard was really the key. And once they went to the lab, then they truly realized that this is a state-of-the-art facility that truly is doing it the correct way. And I think that was really the impressive thing. And from day one, but despite that, it was not easy. You know, a new government came, and then they wanted to revisit again. And then the doctors again were initially probably the worst enemies because they simply didn't understand it, and they didn't want to understand.
Did doctors really circle the wagons and try to keep it out? Like, hey,
yeah, some of them were like dismissive, and then say like, what are you guys doing? This is totally experimental. I said, well, there's evidence now, you know, studies came out all over the world, and now, you know, 15, 16 years later, now they're like, well, yeah, well, you know, you were right. So that's really the initial thing. But I knew that at the end, the important thing for me as a doctor in the group is that, you know, do the right thing, safety, and obviously efficacy in the conditions that we sought. So what does it do? Again, these type of cells that—
Before you get into that, I just want to ask for everybody else, for the listeners, where else did you go? Like, where else? So let's say it's 2006, 2008. Were you flying to other parts of the world to see how other people were doing this? Or were you guys really, really pioneering it? Because I know there's Korea's got stem cell therapy, like Asia's got several centers where they do a lot of stem cell treatments. Were you going to other places?
We went to China, we went to Korea, we went to Israel. They had some, they were doing something in Germany, you know, which are countries that started probably more or less when we started. So we were looking at these type of places to you know, see what they were doing, coordinate, collaborate,
to learn. Yeah, exactly.
And the US had, and they still have some facilities that unfortunately they're still in the experimental phase, but there was really a lot of advances being made even at that time. And the father of these cells, Dr. Arnold Kaplan from Case Western in Cleveland, really was somebody that we met many moons ago, and Dr. Riordan met him, and he's been an advocate of us. He's been here and he's come down. And so there was work being done in the US, but unfortunately they're still lagging behind because of all the regulatory.
The US is behind. There's no stem cell therapy available in the US. Is that correct?
Yeah,
or not what you do?
At this point, no. Is it eventually
Wow.
going to happen? We always say that eventually will, but who knows how long it's going to take, because
Unbelievable.
the problem is a biologic agent, a product, it can't go to the same pathway as a new drug when it comes to the market. And that's really the understanding that they're finally realizing in the US that you can't do all these double-blinded placebo studies that drugs have to go through, because
It's
you're
the
truly,
Achilles heel. Yeah, it's the
yeah,
Achilles heel of the entire system is they only want those kind of studies. And it's like, but you can't study
and,
everything double
and
blind.
it's a wrong model for this type of
Yep.
condition. And finally they're realizing that, but it's still, again, big pharma is very powerful in all this, and
Very powerful, as we know.
once you compete with that, you're going to encounter a lot of obstacles still there. And my partner Neil is still fighting to try to get some indications. He's working on orphan diseases over there, meaning conditions where basically there's nothing else to do to these patients. So that's probably how you start, and then gradually move up the ladder. And so that's really what I feel, unfortunately, is still years behind into at least having some indication. So
it's terrible for American patients, and it's great for your business, which is why I'm telling people about this.
Yeah, we love people coming to Panama, but we understand it's something that should be available. At least at the end, what I tell doctors and people alike, there's a lot of information out there now. When we started, there were probably 10 studies that you can review in the literature now per month, and now there's 2,000. There's a lot of clinical rationale what's happening all over the world. So at the end, it should be a decision made with the doctor and the patient to decide, hey, this could be a therapeutic option that in this condition where there's rationale, the patient should be able to consider. In the US, they're basically getting that option out. So for example, let's go into, you have arthritis in a knee. You have a bad knee that is gradually deteriorating. What are the options in the US? Well, traditionally, pain pills, you do some therapy. Let's put some steroids in that knee, which we know eventually is going to cause more problems. And then eventually it gets worse, and then you end up having a knee replacement. So
joint replacement. Yep.
Pretty bad options. And that's one of the conditions where the cells have shown to be effective, and we'll go again through that. But basically, this becomes an option that a patient should decide, hey, I want to consider this when it's a safe option that can eventually or hopefully at least delay, or in some cases when you get them early, can prevent from that joint deteriorating. So that's really the amazing.
You had a bad knee too. Yeah, you had a story that you shared.
Yeah, I'm a classic example of somebody who damaged my knee when I was 16 years old playing basketball, and I tore partially the ACL, both meniscus. So 25 years later, I had pain all the time, and I already had arthritic changes at the age of 35. So I was heading into that direction of eventually requiring a knee to be replaced. And when I got involved, obviously, in this, I was one of the first patients that I got it in the knee, and suddenly nothing. A month later, I woke up one day, I'm like, my knee is not hurting anymore. I'm like, this is incredible. And I started doing activities against medical advice, playing basketball, doing stuff that I couldn't do for many years, and now I still do it. And so it's amazing. Again, it was not a cure. I've had to repeat it 4 times in the span of 17 years, but that's pretty amazing that my knee is doing great. 2, that the cushion, so you can tell by MRI or by x-rays that the cartilage grew, which is the interesting thing, and we'll go about the mechanism of action of these cells. So that's because one thing is relieving pain, but at the end you want something that can protect long term, and that's really the amazing thing.
So the cells, the stem cells, we're going to get into the mechanisms now, but the stem cells actually do regenerate tissue. I mean, this is a repair mechanism that also then produces the conditions for tissue to regenerate.
Yeah, that's the basis of this, of what we call regenerative medicine. That's where we're at. That's the big future of medicine, and actually there's a lot of interest even in the US. There's a lot of companies, there's a lot of groups now that are truly finally realizing that our body has the ability to repair. Now we need to find ways, and this is definitely a way. So just to give you, one-on-one of all this, we all have cells in our body that help repair. We have our own stem cells in our bone marrow, in our fat, and and in every little blood vessel in our body. So there's tissue specific cells like your liver, kidneys, you name it, you have the ability. But what happens? Again, it's the bank withdrawal syndrome. You keep withdrawing them to help you during the years. And by the time you're 50, 60, you have very little amount. So when a disease hits you, basically you don't have any of these cells or don't have significant amount of these cells to help you repair. So that's really in a very simplistic way that a lot of diseases happen because we simply don't have enough, or we have dysfunction in our own cells. So that's something that we understand now, and that's the basics of the principle of what we do. So we work with fat of the patient, we work with bone marrow of the patient, which the ones that are called autologous cells, which are your own. And what we found, because here we were able to send them to the lab, analyze the potency, analyze the quantity, and we were finding out, as we know, that with aging, the quality, the potency declined. So it was definitely not the best product. Maybe if you have just a bad knee, maybe your own fat could be sufficient to apply cells in a knee. But as I mentioned, the potency, and we'll talk a little about that, declined significantly. That's when we started working on umbilical cord. So these are, when a baby is born, the cord itself, because there's banks banking blood of the cord, and that's a different product. The blood of the cord, even though it has some of these cells, but mainly it has stem cells of the blood. So those can be helpful for family members who
Blood
have
diseases,
a condition, a blood disease,
Yeah.
leukemias, and all that, and that has
Yep.
to be matched, et cetera, et cetera. The cord, the warts and jelly, what we call it, is where these MSCs or mesenchymal cells are in there, and we extract them by a long process that we don't have the time to explain, but basically we have mechanisms in our lab to extract them, and then we can analyze the quality, which is the key thing. And not all the cords are created equal. So if they pass the first filter of infectious diseases, so that's the first thing that people ask me, well, is this product safe? Does it have any contaminants? Well, it goes through a very extensive process of checking the mom, checking the blood of the cord, et cetera. So, and then it goes to an independent lab to make sure that it's safe in the sense of all these diseases. If they qualify because of that, then we look at the potency itself. And not all cords, as I mentioned, are created equal, and some are more potent because of what they produce. And these molecules that we talked about that have to do with the three basic principles that the cells do. Number one, control inflammation. Everything bad that happens in our body happens because of inflammation. And that's what we understand more and more. Aging is an inflammatory process. You give me a disease, it starts with inflammation. So these cells, because of what they secrete, these potent anti-inflammatory molecules, and they home to damaged tissue, as we talked. That's why it can help with heart conditions. We treat a lot of kids with autism. Guess what? A lot of these kids, or most of these kids, it's inflammation that what triggers the problem. So inflammation. Number two, it quiets down the immune system, which in a lot of these autoimmune diseases like MS, rheumatoid arthritis, etc., the basic problem is your own immune system gets hyperactive and it starts attacking you. So this, in a natural way, quiets down your own immune system so it doesn't keep attacking you. Most of these drugs that we see now in commercials in the evening news, these biologic products do that, but with a different pathway. And the problem is that they do affect your immune system, so meaning you're prone to all sorts of infections.
Open to infection, right?
And they say that very rapidly when they advertise, those drugs. And don't get me wrong, a lot of them have new drugs are in the market there, and some are at least with less side effects, but this does it in a natural way. So that's the second process of controlling the immune system. Inflammation, controlling the immune system, and then it has regenerative capacity, trophic capacity, meaning that it can help old cells become younger because you feed them with the right nutrients or right molecules that helps that cell tissue help repair what can be repaired. Obviously, if you have an end stage condition, the likelihood of
damage is done.
reversibility, and that's we go down to indications. Again, there are things that it can help. It's not a cure for anything. It's a therapy that can help because of these three principles.
Two quick questions about the cells themselves. Is there a danger ever that somebody's body will reject them since it's coming from the placenta or the umbilical cord of another human being? Do cells get rejected? Is there an issue with rejection? And then the
the blood of the cord, yes, because they do exert a major antigen react. These cells are immune privileged, meaning that they don't exert rejection in your body, and that's been proven in multiple studies. So basically, the body does not attack it, doesn't look at it as a foreign, and basically they just go in, secrete all these molecules, and eventually they're actually cleared by your system. So whatever they do, whatever they help, and they're out. How long? There's some studies in type 2 diabetes, and there's some other studies to indicate that probably, year and a half, the full effect is, or the cells are out, or the secretions are out. The benefits are there, and whatever you gain, and then that's why some patients come back
every
year and a half to keep maintenance in whatever conditions they're coming for.
And you must get follow-up treatment. I mean, if you have access to this, I mean, I met you. You certainly don't look like you're in your 60s. So
I've been doing it myself. Yeah, obviously, I said, well, I'm something that I truly believed in, and that what have I noticed that the way I recover from day-to-day sporting activities, my inflammatory markers are better, my hormones are better. So my overall performance, I'm 61 now, and I feel truly better than when I felt,
I'm
10,
coming,
15
man.
years. Yeah,
and
that's a
big, I'm telling you.
Yeah, that's a big group of people are coming. So again, these conditions, like arthritis in general, all the autoimmune diseases like MS, rheumatoid, lupus, etc. That's a big group of patients that we see. Autism, as we talked, that we published an article, a study that we did on autism, and it's pretty remarkable. You can help adult patients, but you can help a kid that now is considered non-autistic. That's pretty dramatic, significant, and it blows us away.
Do you have an opinion on the epidemic of autism? Is that likely to be? It certainly does appear that probably kids are being given way too many injections early in life. It stands to reason to me that that's part of it. Do you agree? Does that make sense? I mean, I'm not saying you're an expert on this. Maybe you don't have an opinion, but if you're seeing lots of kids that are getting results from having essentially, if they're having massive inflammatory response, and this is helping reduce it, what's causing that, right? There's only a couple of things that can be causing it.
Right. We looked into all that because I was amazed at, and pretty affect me a lot to see how many kids with autism we have nowadays. In my day and age, I recall maybe one or two. So what has happened? There are many factors, no doubt. The vaccine overutilization, even though they did a study there that they say they concluded or not, but forget it. I've seen it, and I've talked to parents who told me right away it happened after so-and-so vaccine, my second, my third. So there's no doubt that that's messing up their immune system, triggering this inflammation. So that's a factor. Environmental things, food, exposure,
radiation
in general.
who knows?
things that are food additions, fast, it's a multifactorial, but there's no doubt that I don't think there's any, significant study. Maybe they don't even want to look into that, but the matter of fact is no doubt it's an epidemic. And
it's an epidemic. Yeah, it is. In the United States, it's I mean, everybody knows somebody whose kids got autism.
No doubt.
It's like, what's going to happen to these people?
And the parents can tell you it happened, boom, this event, this vaccine and all that. So there's no doubt that that's a factor that plays a role, and no doubt that it just keeps growing, and nobody talks about it because they don't consider it maybe a disease, but it's pretty disabling for everybody,
Well, the fact that this therapy is out there, I mean, I know a lot of parents, if you're a parent and you're seeing this and you know somebody with autism, you need to look into the Stem Cell Institute. It's just that
we have, in our website, we have a lot of clinical information that patients love to look into it, because that's something that I always, I'm proud of, that, we have a lot of clinical data that patient can look at, and we have, obviously a lot of information there that they can instruct. And when the patients come down, which is great, again, they're very well versed in the material, which is, for me, really important, because
which is excellent. Yeah, that's excellent. Would you,
exactly.
Obviously, I'm going to put the website and the link to the information pages, but would you tell people just quickly off the top of your head, what conditions do best with stem cells? We've talked autoimmune, we've talked autism because of the relationship to inflammation, joint pain, like from RA, rheumatoid arthritis, possible autoimmune diabetes, these things. Anything else? Like, what other conditions do really well?
Yeah, so apart from all those that you mentioned already, heart failure actually is a big one that, we go back to the case of my friend, the doctor. So not a patient with mechanical problems of the heart, but these are patients with heart failure documented by echocardiogram that could be due to multiple causes. Diabetics have it, or people with coronary disease that the heart fails. So the cells, because of what they secrete, have been shown to improve the pumping ability of the heart. So heart failure is one condition that we've been treating it for a while. And again, the nice thing about it, if we have, you can have objective data of echocardiogram before and after. So that's a big group of patients.
And so those are electrical conductivity problems of the heart, or congestive?
No, that's simply a heart that's, because of many factors, simply is not pumping adequately anymore.
Okay.
And that's and it's basically, it's a group
it's losing potency. It doesn't have the
potency. Yeah. So that we've seen quite a lot of those, and so that's, and then we treated, and we treat still patient with spinal cord injury. That's a big group of patients that before we thought many years ago that once you have a damage to a nerve that it can't regenerate, but obviously we know now it can. And obviously it's a devastating disease that if you can get them early on in a specific criteria that we have, we've seen some pretty dramatic improvements in these patients who, for whatever reason they had the injury, can help. And we've had patients who are walking with assistance, some that have regained their sphincter tone, which is pretty dramatic for somebody with the spinal cord. So that's another group of patients that we've had success.
Yep.
So a big group now that we're seeing, and we go back to the issue of wellness, preventative care, is people that are coming as a preventative treatment, and they come once a year, and they're basically
staying on top of their treatment.
And the simplistic way is, you're getting a young army of cells that they want to repair, and we go back to the inflammation. So we call it inflammatory protocol, preventative, or frailty, and people are older, and those are the things that we're looking at. And I presented some data in the conference about quality of life measurements that definitely, like myself, have noticed. And we're looking at lab work that shows how these benefits are occurring at a chemical level. And so that's a big group of people that are looking into what can they do to invest in their health. And it makes a lot of sense. As I mentioned, it's part of that puzzle. We're understanding a lot now about aging, and then exercise, nutrition, balancing hormones, vitamins, and I think cells is becoming a big, at least part of that puzzle. So we're seeing a lot of it.
That's so
And,
excellent. Yeah, that's so excellent that this is now proven and also widely available. Say a few words about safety, because this blew me away. The real question is, but what could go wrong here?
Right.
Obviously,
right.
you guys have done a lot on safety. It has to be reviewed. Anything medical like this is going
Totally.
to have the, so to speak, under a microscope about safety. So talk about safety for a moment.
Yeah. Well, obviously that was a key aspect. Anything you do in medicine is you have to document safety. And so for me, for all of us, that was really a mainstay of what we needed to prove. So not only reviewing a study from all the places in the world, but we wanted to document it ourselves. So that's something what we did in these conditions that we talked about. When we did the study on MS, it was looking at safety first, and then some efficacy. When we did an autism, the same thing. We did one on rheumatoid arthritis, the same. So these are studies that we published. Apart from that, the data that we have is pretty much, I think, the largest data in stem cell therapies in the world, in the sense that we follow up our patients very closely by questionnaires, et cetera, because a lot of them don't live here, but we keep close tabs, and that's how we've been able to review the data on safety, and that's something that we keep looking into that. And then what are the main things that we have encountered is really minor things that can happen a day, 2 days after some irritation in the vein where the cells are applied, or patients feel like they have a flu overnight.
You said, but that would be normal. I mean, you're introducing foreign something, the body's going to have a reaction to it, but that flu sensation or the experience of flu-like symptoms passes, or do you have people who are really overwhelmed by it?
No. Well, again, some people get it a little, I get it myself, and it takes, 24 hours. It goes away. So these are
get like fever and chills kind of reaction.
It's not really fever, but you feel feverish because the temperature doesn't rise as much, but because of not the foreign aspect, because of the secretions, these cytokines that mediate the immune system can trigger. So we see that when we apply it in the joints, the knee can get swollen. That can take a couple of days also. So that does happen. But again, these are very minimal and obviously very short-lived and doesn't affect, the efficacy or long-term. We haven't seen any long-term problem with the cells, and that's
nobody's died from it, and there's no long-term
nothing that we've looked closely in it, and there's really no issue with that. At the end, it's a very natural process. You're putting these cells secrete, they go out, and so that's, again, the key thing is safety, and that's something that we keep looking, we keep doing it, and we're obviously on top of that all the time, because that's the number one aspect of what we do.
Yep.
So that's again, the key thing that we know that makes a big difference in this product.
Well, that's probably a great place to stop. I have more questions for you here. I know you deal with pro athletes. I know a lot of NFL football players come. I know Hollywood actors. You shared some stories with us when you spoke to the group on people who have discovered you and come down. I think you got Tony Robbins on the speed dial there. I mean, it's an unbelievable thing to see what has happened. I mean, you think about it, like this whole thing started in 2006. That's not that long ago. You can imagine where this is going to be. Obviously, I'm going to put all the links into the show notes. Last question. What does it cost? I know what I wanted to ask also. Do you work with other doctors? So say I'm going to have to get my knee checked out. I'm going to try your therapy for what I have developing here, which is definitely an arthritic problem from my knee to my foot because of an old injury. Do I get worked up before I come see you, MRI, X-ray, look at all the different things, and then I come to you? Or do you guys do that there? Or how does the whole process for somebody like me, so that people have an idea how it works?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good question, and I think that is something that's important to discuss. So, patients reach us. Our website has become very high in the search engines and all this, and but it's been a lot of word of mouth. So people access our website, cellmedicine.com, and then they fill out the application form that's there, and then we review each case, and there are conditions, and we get a bunch of a bunch of applications in condition where there's no rationale, there's nothing there, and we're really clear cut. No, there's no indication. So those cases, we say simply there's no rationale or no indication. The ones that there's rationale or they're candidates, let's say in the case you mentioned with a bad knee or arthritis, then we'll request via email additional medical information, either the recent blood work and conditions that we need that, or in this case, your recent MRI report or recent X-ray. Some cases, patients just say, "Well, my knee just hurts, and I want cells injected." Yeah, we can get, we still want film, but we can get them here. It's very easy to get a X-ray done here in Panama. But for most, patients are clear, and they know the system, so they are able to get the record. So then we review that. Once we have that, and patient is a candidate, then we'll send them a formal acceptance letter, and then we have people that can help them through the process of getting them down. And then it's a very seamless, and we are, again, we make the experience, for the patient. Understandably, a lot of them have never been to Panama, and a lot of them get pleasantly surprised when they come here, and it's a big metropolis with everything to offer. But still, we grab them at the airport, take them to the hotel. The hotel is next to our center, so it makes it very seamless.
It's all very, very white glove, first class treatment.
That's really important. And but yeah, so the bottom line is yes. So we review each case. We make sure they have medical information, and a lot of them now, how things is happening with medicine. We go back to in the initial years, patients were coming against medical advice totally. Some of them were not even telling their doctors. Some of them that told the doctors are like, "I'm not going to see you anymore."
Yeah,
and,
right.
And time changes. Now they're coming with their blessing, and a lot of them come, the doctor tells them, "Well, if I was you, I will go to Panama." So that tells us a lot of what we've done. We're really proud, and we're open. We're really transparent. The doctors that have come down, we show them everything. They want to learn, and that's for me really gratifying that we have a new generation of doctors now that are looking truly into this field of regenerative medicine and wellness. And I think that there's a shift that I'm seeing locally here and worldwide, because
that's really great.
They're tired of the traditional way.
That's really great to hear. Yep.
Yeah, I'm really optimistic, and I feel this is something at the end that should be, the patient should decide, hey, I want to consider this if it's safe. And
of course, yeah, exactly.
So
all of that has been lost in North American medicine. All of that has been lost.
And a lot of them are frustrated. Totally. I talked to a lot of. I wish I could be there and all that. And many other countries are moving in that direction. Japan has a great model. So there's a lot of biologic studies and therapies being done there. Korea is still moving. They have several indications. Germany, Spain. So a lot has happened through the world, and the U.S. is lagging behind. Unfortunately, it's sad.
Yeah, like a lot of things right now. And what does it cost? What does it cost? Like, I mean, what's the range? Like, if is there different prices for different treatments, or what roughly does it cost me to, if somebody wants to get a heart treatment or a knee treatment, what does that run?
Okay, so it obviously varies in the amount of cells that we put in what type of condition, but roughly in adults, it's probably in the anywhere from 22 to 27,000, in that range, and that involves applications, 3 intravenous shots on consecutive days.
Okay.
Plus other joints. Let's say in a condition that somebody has bad hips or knees or ligaments or muscles, and so that includes all that.
Fantastic.
Obviously, in children, it's less because there's less amount of cells, but typically the protocol patients have to be here 4 days. So we do a medical evaluation. They stay in a hotel next to the clinic. They come up. Takes 40 minutes. A very simplistic. You just get an IV. The cells go in. The patient goes back. They can go. They go back to the hotel. They can have lunch, dinner.
Relax.
Again,
Yeah.
pretty simple process. We're looking. We understand it's not for everybody. Cost is an issue, and we are always looking to find ways to mass produce the cells to keep the quality. And I think in the future we're going to see, something more affordable, but it's a long, laborious procedure to get the quality of the cells, and we feel, that's the key thing. But we're looking into that. There's some private insurances that are even looking into it, because at the end, they say, well, I prefer treating a patient with rheumatoid arthritis with your cells, and they only have to come once a year instead of paying these
That's
agents
actually cost effective. Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that may be in the future. I think some private insurers are looking into it, but again, they're also way behind in what truly the science is, all this. So hopefully we'll see that in the future.
Well, thank you very much for your time. That's just fascinating stuff for me, for the audience, for everybody. And I will certainly be coming by to see you the next time I'm in Panama City, hopefully here by the end of the year, and I'll let you know ahead of time. So thank you again, and best regards to you and all your people there at Stem Cell Institute.
Thank you very much, and hopefully see you soon. And it's a pleasure talking to you and all your
For me as well. Thank you very much, Doctor. All right, take good care.
Bye.
Yep, bye.